Broadcasting from the World Conference Center in Bonn, Germany, Solutions Review is on location at the FME User Conference 2023, the peak of data integration. Brought to you by Safe Software and Conterra.
I'm Doug Atkinson, and we are back here at Bonn, Germany at the Peak of Data Integration event, speaking with David Eagle, Director of Service Delivery at Tenzing.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us.
Pleasure.
Well, I'm glad you're here because obviously this is a major FME event, and you are an FME expert. I understand you've been working with FME for a couple of decades now.
Yeah, it was probably around 2000, 2001 when I was first introduced to FME.
Yeah, so you've seen a lot of the evolution, and certainly it's gone through a lot of evolution, but it's also on its way to continually evolving. But tell me a little bit about what FME means to you, to kind of level set the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with FME for so long because I guess it's always given me the ability to say yes. The amount of clients that I've worked with and organizations that have got data challenges, I can happily go in and be reasonably confident that I can walk in and solve the data challenges that the organization's got, but I can also leave them enjoying using a technology that's got such a great community around it, like we're seeing here at the conference today.
Well, it's amazing the stories that we hear when we come to an event like this. We did this in Vancouver a year ago. Here we're getting this incredible collection of real impactful implementations where it's improving people's lives, it's improving efficiencies, it's creating sustainability stories. I mean, it's really quite an amazing technology. Tell me a little bit about what gets you excited about it. I mean, are there some projects that you're working on right now that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, some of the exciting areas actually, given FME's heritage of working with spatial, actually some of the exciting projects at the moment are organizations that just have data, not necessarily
Right.
to do with a spatial problem. We've been involved with discussing with an organization at the moment about alcohol analysis. The drinks industry is enormous, and it's going through a significant change at the moment because people are stopping drinking wine and they're starting to drink craft beer and
Right.
soft drinks and mocktails, and
Right.
and this organisation is looking at trends and future predictions to try and deal with challenges like the French government has just announced a 200 million euro fund to help French wine growers destroy wine.
Oh no.
And that's the kind of thing that this organisation is trying to help predict, to help organisations sort of balance their plans for the future, for what they might be producing.
This is what's so fascinating to me, because the FME story has been this kind of spatial data story for so long, and I know one of the initiatives is really to kind of mainstream FME into just data integration in just kind of any implementation. But it still fascinates me, what is data? What can be data? Like the idea that alcohol consumption is effectively data, right? In addition to, I mean, it may not be that particular project, but the idea of where you can grow grapes in what climates, and that spatial data to produce perhaps the best grapes or the most grapes or whatever the...
No, absolutely, and that's sort of being impacted by climate change, and one of the other clients that we're working with is the whole approach is all about risk mitigation for climate impact, and this is a spatial challenge. This is an organisation working with agriculture, working with farmers, working with government from a policy perspective, and looking at the aggregation of data from real-time sensors, so things like field sensors that are measuring salinity and temperature of the soil in specific locations around the farm, specifically to ensure that the input to growing crops is managed and is efficient. So input being things like chemicals and fertilizers and water, increasingly important input to farms, specifically so that you don't have a macro policy across an entire farm. Actually, you might be irrigating certain parts of fields rather than entire fields, because the moisture level, because of the incline of the hill, means that the upper part of the hill needs to be irrigated slightly more than the lower part, for example.
Well, and this is again the bigger story here, which is not only does it help the farmer grow a better crop more efficiently, but it can also help the environment by creating, less of a footprint.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way we're going to be able to leverage data is really truly remarkable. Tell me a little bit about Tenzing in general, and kind of the things that you guys are finding traction with, and where clients are really kind of leaning on you.
Yeah. I mean, we do, as an organization, we do a lot of work where we have individual consultants working directly for clients for a good proportion of their time. So we're very focused on sort of, I guess the modern term is augmenting a team, so providing the ability for
I think that's what the teams want.
Absolutely. Providing flexibility, for organizations to access technical subject matter experts without the need to necessarily have them on staff all the time. So we're airlifted in to solve the really challenging data problems, the data connectivity challenges that organizations are dealing with.
And ultimately that's what Solutions Review has really been a big part of, is connecting those dots together, where we love to talk to solution providers and expose them to clients that are coming to Solutions Review to see, what's available to them, because ultimately that is what this is all about.
No, absolutely.
Right? It's load balancing. It's getting experts to help where experts are needed. But it's an exciting time. So there's a lot of talk around here about generative AI, and are we in an inflection point? I mean, outside of everything that you're doing on a daily basis, I mean, how do you think about all that sort of thing and where we're headed?
Well, you started by talking about my 20 years of, and actually looking back and reflecting on some of the things that Don and Dale were talking about yesterday in their career. The speed of change is the one thing that's really getting me at the moment. I was thinking through when I used to started to work with FME, connecting to APIs, application programming interfaces, rather than files, and that actually was only sort of 6 or 7 years ago where that groundswell of requirement started to appear, and we're now at the point where we're able to ask a computer to answer a detailed question with nuance, and then ask follow-up questions, or summarize large documents, or extract images from documents so that we can reuse them in different ways. It's the way that you work with and interact with data now is increasingly different, and I have children, and they're not at the stage where they're quite getting involved in IT yet, but we as a group have been chatting over this week about how we're to influence and help our children deal with this new technology, because
they will never know a different time.
Exactly, we've seen the difference and the change and the transition, and they're dropping in at a point where, as you say, it does feel like an inflection point and a real step real step change in.
Well, it's unbelievable, and I think over and over again we're seeing that ultimately all of this is going to, just as it has through all the inflection points that we were talking about yesterday with Don and Dale, it's going to create these efficiencies for the human race and this greater kind of, I think, a beneficial outcome rather than, the doom and gloom and scare of, how it's going to end humanity and I think it's nothing but a positive right now, and ultimately it's because of, really creative, smart human beings that we've gotten to this point in the first place. And I just don't see how that doesn't continue.
Well, the whole Terminator analogy has been overused to sell magazines.
Yeah, right.
And I think certainly the impact of artificial intelligence in the medical industry is going to allow for the kind of analysis that is taking too long for many individuals. It is taking too long to be able to put thousands and thousands of hours worth of computation into minutes now is going to be really important for individuals that are needing care or needing a fix to whatever challenge they're dealing with personally.
We're going to be talking with the Swiss humanitarian aid folks later on. The impact about FME, the impact that all of this has, the way that data can impact not only, a simple client implementation, but really sustainability and humanitarian, having a humanitarian impact. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's important to note that with some of the generated content from AI, actually the human is necessary to know how to ask the question. It's important to know how to ask the question, but it's also important to be able to interpret the response, because the response is often, at the moment at least, the response is often in many ways wrong, but you have to be able to ask a follow-up question or put some nuance into how you're asking the question, or train the AI to do it again, but do it better.
It's interesting you say that, because yesterday we were talking to somebody and they said, if you gave 20 FME experts a problem to solve, they would come up with 20 different FME solutions, FME-based solutions, all of which would be right.
Yep.
And I think the point really is that you can't deny the human creativity, that, like you said, to interpret what they're seeing and what inputs they're getting from artificially intelligent generated inputs, and then ultimately make a decision based upon that from the years of experience, like someone like you.
Yeah, and it's funny you say 20 individuals in a room. When we're training FME and teaching people how to use FME, we often look at examples where you do exactly the same thing in 3 different ways and look at the pros and cons of each task. And the colleagues I've worked with over the years who author a workspace, it's a very artistic platform where you can lay things out in certain ways, and it's fascinating. You can almost get a sense of the individual's personality with how they write their workspace, because they might lay it out in a very ordered, logical way, or it might be completely scattered around the screen. But both approaches end up with an answer, and it gives you the flexibility to come up with the different types of connections and layout and design that suits your needs. So,
and this is why anybody who has a problem that they need to solve should be speaking to somebody like yourself, who's seen a thing or two and can bring some of that expertise to bear. This has been great. Good to catch up. Yeah. Pleasure to see you. Best of luck with Tenzing. And,
Thank you.
We'll see you again soon.
Superb. Cheers. Thank you.